Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Thursday, October the 12th, 2023. In this video, I want to talk about Saturday's eclipse. It is an annular eclipse, which means that the disk of the moon does not entirely cover the disk of the sun. So you get a ring, and the word annular comes from the Latin for ring. And of course, by definition, this eclipse it's a new moon eclipse because you've got the moon covering the disk of the sun. So when you've got, or almost covering the disk of the sun, so when the sun and the moon are together, by definition, that is a new moon. So I'm going to look at this eclipse from several angles. I want to look at the eclipse in general, how it might affect us down here on Earth. And I will argue that it's not necessarily going to be a particularly big deal. And maybe on a personal level, we shouldn't get too excited about it. I will then be looking at a couple of celebrities who I think might be affected by the eclipse. For example, Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany. I think he could be affected by it. I think that Kate, what's her name, Princess Catherine, might be affected by it. I think actually Meghan might be affected by it, and I think the relationship between Kate and Meghan might be affected by it. So there are some people who may be particularly affected by it, and that's because the eclipse has a line-up with something in their charts. Then I want to consider the Metonic Cycle. So the Metonic Cycle is this cycle by which a lunation will repeat every 19 years. So on October the 14th, 2004, there was a partial new moon eclipse. And I want to look at that partial new moon eclipse that happened 19 years ago. And I want to look at what was actually going on in the world 19 years ago, because there's some really interesting stuff going on that I want to share with you. And finally, I want to look at the chart of Israel again, because this eclipse certainly affects the chart of Israel. So let's now look at the chart for the eclipse. This is, okay, I've set this for London. So London time, it's October the 14th, 2023. And I make it that this program says that it's like 6:55 p.m. Now, top right, that is a picture of Olaf Scholz, who I believe will be impacted by this eclipse, as I will soon be discussing. Now, on the surface, this eclipse is not a big deal. I mean, look, here's the eclipse. New moon in Libra. It's conjunct the South Node. By definition, eclipses are always conjunct the South Node or the North Node. It's not a big deal. That by definition, if you see the Sun and the Moon and they're not conjunct the North or the South Node, then it can't be an eclipse. So that's nothing to get excited about. Mercury is widely conjunct this eclipse in Libra. Mercury is a communication planet, so I suppose on a personal level we might find that this eclipse is a time to start some new pattern of communication, being able to sort of communicate in maybe new ways. It might be a good time for sending letters, emails over the next couple of weeks. They might be very effective, or making phone calls. Might be a good time to, I don't know, start a YouTube channel, start a blog, something like that. Or okay, you could start writing your book. If you've got a book to write and you're really, you feel you've got something to say, then yeah, a new moon on your Mercury, new moon on Mercury might be the time to do it. Of course, no guarantees about it getting published, because getting things published is really quite difficult. In fact, it's almost impossible. Okay. Oh, if you're a Chiron watcher, okay, Chiron. This new moon is opposition Chiron, and in fact, this new moon eclipse takes place at a time when Mercury is exactly opposition Chiron. So, Chiron opposition Mercury opposition Chiron. We can perhaps communicate. This can perhaps is telling us about how we can communicate. Maybe the things we write can be very healing. Remember, Chiron is a wounded healer. Maybe it's a time to discuss our own wounds, our own psychological wounds. That might be how we might want to do it. Though we shouldn't forget that Chiron is often described as the maverick. It's not just about the wounded healer, it's about someone who does something differently. So with Mercury opposition Chiron, we might say stuff which just doesn't go down very well, at least at first. So the wound might be from the fact that we say something and it doesn't get the reception we were expecting, and so we might be seeing this all over the place. People saying things that go down badly, and people getting hurt by other people's words or even their own words. So if you're going to say something, be careful. Think about what impact it might actually have, because if you say the wrong thing, you might actually be wounded by it. So bear that in mind. Now, I understand that when people very often look at new moons, they like to focus on all the sort of fuzzy stuff, and they might say Chiron opposition the new moon is going to healing through words, but it's an opposition. Words are not often, I don't say often, but words are not always healing. You might think you're saying the right thing. You might even see someone in distress, say something to them. You think you're gonna help them, soothe them, and in fact, it might do the opposite. You might just be bringing old wounds up out into the open. So with this Chiron opposition Mercury, we really have to be extremely careful what we say. Now, it may be that we want to cause chaos. We want to be the maverick, in which case, fine, that's okay. But you just have to be aware of the consequences of your actions and your words over the next couple of weeks. Now, that's what you're looking at is the new moon on the surface. What I like to do with the new moon is actually look at what midpoints it's on. Because the sun and the moon are actually conjunct, they will occupy the same midpoints, and I want to look at this new moon from a perspective of the 90-degree dial. I'm not going to go into details about how the 90-degree dial is constructed, but what the 90-degree dial does is it puts conjunctions, oppositions, and squares together. And so if you see two things that are conjunct, it means they could be square, they could be conjunct, they could be opposition. And that's right. And if you see two things that are opposition on the 90-degree dial, that means they're either 45 or 135 degrees apart. But I don't want to go into the details. But it's a kind of like an X-ray. an X-ray of the new moon. So here's a 90-degree dial, and I'm just going to move this arrow to the position of the new moon. There we have it. So this arrow, you can see that's on the new moon, and there is a sort of zigzagging here, and we can see that the main midpoint here, and it involves hypothetical planets. There is a Hades Kronos conjunction there. So this conjunction in itself is not a big deal because it's been around for a very long time. But Hades is the principle of death, destruction, things that are vile. Kronos is the government. So it represents perhaps all the vile, disgusting things that governments can do, the death and destruction that governments can inflict on the people they rule. So that's how that's the Hades Kronos link. Then Pluto is, of course, transformation, can be connected with death and change. So Pluto Kronos, Pluto Hades, it's about the destructive changes that governments can bring. And this new moon is on, as you can see, there's the new moon. The new moon is on the Pluto Kronos midpoint, and it's on the Pluto Hades midpoint. And you can see that there's the new moon, and you can see that 20-minute orb to an aspect to the Pluto Hades midpoint, 36-minute orb to the Pluto Kronos midpoint. So this gives this new moon a new flavour, not a very nice flavour. I think overall, because of this midpoint, maybe on a personal level it's not a big deal, but from a collective global level, this new moon is not nice because it's on that midpoint. This new moon is about starting a cycle where governments are just going to do disgusting things, evil things, destruction. We'll see governments at their worst around the world. So if you think that this new moon eclipse is about bringing some wonderful, pleasant energy into the world, just forget it. This new moon is bringing in sort of dark, destructive forces are coming down here onto our planet, and we will be able to see it all around us. But again, it's not necessarily going to affect us personally. Well, because it depends where we are. I mean, if we're in the Middle East or if we're in Ukraine, we're going to feel it more than if we're I don't know, in Wyoming. Though I suppose, governments work at different levels. We think of governments like, I don't know, the United States government or the Israeli government or the Russian government. But there's local government. So if you are, I don't know, if you're in, if you're, I don't know, United States, think about what your city's doing. Your city could be doing terrible things, maybe terrible things to the environment, terrible things to individuals. So check what government at every level is doing. Even if it's just your city, because likely as not, your city is up to no good. They are just acting in a completely immoral and base way. This is what the new moon is about. So we need to keep our eyes open, and we need to look at the absolute damage and destruction that people in authority can cause. At every level. Even in a private capacity, businesses, companies, everywhere where there is a structure, where there is a hierarchy, the people at the top with this new moon are going to be encouraged to do bad things, and we just have to be aware of it. So that's my view of this new moon eclipse. The conjunction with Mercury is nice, but that Mercury is opposition Chiron. I don't think that Chiron opposition Mercury is necessarily going to be fortunate, as I've already explained. Now, as far as certain individuals, I mean, these individuals, I've just taken them at random. Probably nothing's going to happen. Let's just look at. Let's look at. Oh, that's Meghan's chart. Let's look at. Kate's chart. So she is. She is. What's she? She the Princess of Wales, whatever, William's wife. She has got her Saturn at 21 degrees 50 Libra. So this new moon does hit her Saturn. Now Saturn is her boundaries. It's what she regards as being important. Remember, she's a sensible Capricorn. She's got her boundaries, and with this new moon, she's going to be perhaps aware of where her boundaries are and what might be infringing on her boundaries. And so let's now look at her chart and Meghan's chart put together. So you've got Catherine in the middle, and then you've got Meghan on the outside. You'll notice that you see Catherine has got her Saturn at 2150 Libra, and Meghan's Pluto is at 2151 Libra. So Meghan's Pluto is exactly conjunct Catherine's Saturn. They both have their Saturns in. They both have their Saturns in Libra. They both have their Plutos in Libra. But there's something about Meghan that really gets under Catherine's skin. Really, Pluto is, I suppose, about transformation. It's about obsession. There's something that is attacking of Catherine's boundaries, and she doesn't like it at the best of times. And then we have a new moon, and this new moon is at 21 Libra. So this new moon is on Meghan's Pluto, and it is on Catherine's Saturn. So this new moon hits a major link between the two women. So that might really stir things up. So I think over the next couple of weeks, Kate needs to keep her cool. She needs to not take Meghan too seriously. Not allow this woman to irritate and upset her balance. But we may never see it. I'm sure we will never see it. We're not gonna find out what Catherine is really feeling. But maybe Meghan's gonna do something that's just gonna really annoy her. So that's the new moon for Catherine and Meghan. The other person I want to look at is Olaf Scholz. I must apologize. I know very little about German politics. I do know that Olaf Scholz is a Chancellor. I do know that he's under pressure. Germany is not in a happy state. I believe it's in recession. It's been seriously damaged by the war, by America's proxy war in Ukraine. And it's not a country that's at ease with itself. The elections, I believe there were elections in Hesse and Bavaria. Have I got that right? Sorry if I haven't, but I believe that the parties associated with Scholz have not done well. And then we've got a new moon. This new moon eclipse hits Scholz. He has got Jupiter at 2147 Libra, and he's got ascendant at 2111 Libra, assuming with his time of 3 p.m. In Osnabrück, Germany, is correct. This new moon hits him. And what does it mean? I mean, it hits his Jupiter rising. Logically, that's good. So this might mean that something happens in Scholz's life over the next few weeks that is good. What could happen to Olaf Scholz? I haven't spent a lot of time analysing it. I mean, it might be a really good time for Olaf Scholz to resign. Jupiter is about release. Maybe that's what he needs to do. I mean, or events might take place for Scholz that show him the way forward. He might get some good news, but I think the best way of looking at it is, the best option for him is to resign. I mean, that would be the thing to do. If I was his astrologer, I'd tell him now's a great time to resign. He'll feel an amazing sense of release. I suppose, when you've got a new moon on his ascendant, I mean, I know there's nothing malefic here. Well, there is, in the sense that this new moon, we know, is on the Pluto Hades and the Pluto Kronos midpoint. And so it's not pleasant. And this man is Chancellor of Germany. If he stays in power, with that new moon being so malefic and so aligned with misuse of power, as Chancellor, if he stays as Chancellor, he may feel he can do stuff which he shouldn't be doing, which is a misuse of power. And the kind of stuff he gets involved in, if he stays as Chancellor, is probably not going to be very good for the German population. But he might get away with it because he's got Jupiter rising. He's lucky. Whatever you think of him, Olaf Scholz is lucky with that Jupiter rising. In a way, his chart is. The question is, how did he get to be where he was with the talents he has? A few weeks ago, I looked at the chart of the head of the SS, Himmler, and I'm not really making the association between the two just because they're both German. But Himmler was a pretty mediocre person, and he got to be, he got to be one of the most powerful people in Germany, and he had Jupiter in Sagittarius exactly on the midheaven. So Jupiter on an angle can allow you to be over-promoted, can allow you to go far beyond the position that you really deserve. And maybe this Jupiter rising that Olaf Scholz has shows how he's got to be Chancellor. He's got to and then now we've got this new moon eclipse on it. So in terms of my forecast for Olaf Scholz, I want to be vague, actually. I want to say I think something's going to happen with Olaf Scholz. I haven't really looked closely at his chart. Maybe over the next few weeks, but I'm not sure what it is. I've made some possible suggestions. He could resign. He could misuse his power. Okay, it's Jupiter. I don't know. There could be some other attempt to sort of remove him from office. You see how vague it is? I'm sorry, I'm sounding really vague. But so what I'm asking you, particularly if you're German, to just bear this new moon in mind and just look very carefully at what's going on with Olaf Scholz at the moment. Now, another person who is affected by this new moon, who I've already covered, is Benjamin Netanyahu. We don't know exactly what time he's born. Probably born late morning. So he has got his moon at 2018 Libra. So this new moon, I mean, obviously it's going to affect him, but I'm not going to get any credit for saying that, because we already know that he's a busy man, with a major crisis on his hands. So I can't get much credit for saying that. But it does link up with the Israel chart, because Israel. If you look at Israel's chart, Israel has got 23 degrees 2 minutes as its ascendant. So this new moon affects Israel. And again, we know it affects Israel. I'm stating the obvious here. I'm not trying to make any credit here, but Israel's obviously going to be doing stuff. Which brings me on to the Metonic Cycle. So every 19 years, a lunation will repeat. So 19 years ago, there was a partial eclipse. October the 14th, 2004. There it is. There's that new moon. So what actually was going on October the 14th, 2004? Okay, let me tell you what was going on October the 14th, 2004. I'm going to read you what Wikipedia said for this date. So let's see what Wikipedia was telling. October the 14th, 2004 was a Thursday. Okay, so Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon accepts an Israel Defense Force plan to begin withdrawing troops from Jabalia, Bet Lahaya and Beit Hanun in the northern Gaza Strip this weekend. About 100,000 Israelis in 100 cities march in a series of demonstrations across Israel, opposing their government's proposal to withdraw Israeli settlers from the Gaza Strip and parts of the West Bank. In Iraq, United States warplanes launched sustained airstrikes against the rebel-held city of Fallujah, following a breakdown in peace talks between the Iraqi government and representatives of the city. Iraqi insurgents carry out 2 bomb attacks within Baghdad's heavily fortified Green Zone, which houses Iraqi government officials, and the Iraqi government warns of a possible increase in terrorist activity during the Muslim month of Ramadan. The Israeli government announces that it will not restrict the number of worshippers allowed to enter Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, located in the area known as the Temple Mount in Judaism during the Muslim month of Ramadan. So you can see there that we are seeing serious echoes between what was happening 19 years ago and what was happening today. So 19 years ago, Israel was removing troops from Gaza, and it was actually on the day of the new moon, of the new moon eclipse. It was a partial eclipse, not an annular eclipse. And now, 19 years later, it's happening. It's happening, perhaps all in reverse. So we're having to revisit what was going on October the 14th, 2004. And I think this very powerfully shows us the impact of the Metonic cycle. And so why is there this linkage? Well, because these eclipses were at 21 degrees Libra. It was on Israel's ascendant. okay, within 2 degrees. And so I think that that does explain what's going on here. And so now with this eclipse, with this current eclipse, again on Israel's ascendant, by the way, the hypothetical planet Zeus is at 23 degrees Libra right now. And Zeus is connected with warfare, guns, attacks, that kind of thing. So it's kind of not surprising that things have exploded again in the Middle East. And I think, could we have predicted what was going on in the Middle East on the basis of the Metonic Cycle, looking back at what was happening 19 years ago? I think, in retrospect, with 2020 hindsight, I think we probably could. But in terms of the big stuff with this new moon, particularly bearing in mind what was happening 19 years ago, it's back to Israel, and it's back to what's already in the news. So there's no point in me making a prediction regarding the Middle East for this new moon, because we already know what's going to happen. But I would say that I would like to finish by saying that if you're going to start something, you should really be starting it after the new moon. You don't want to do it before the new moon. So if Israel is contemplating some major initiative regarding Gaza, for example, reversing some of what it did 19 years ago, then they should probably wait until the new moon, is over. And when I say over, you don't do it before the new moon. You take your initiatives after the new moon on a new cycle. You don't. They shouldn't move into Gaza or whatever on a waning moon. They should move it if they really think that that's the right thing to do. Whatever other initiative they're going to take, they should do it after the new moon. So it's on a waxing moon. So when it's in a new cycle. So anyway, those are some thoughts. Those are some thoughts on this new moon. In general, overall, I do not think this is going to be. It's going to be a good new moon. I think it's going to be government overreach. That's what I think this. I think that's what I think this new moon eclipse is all about. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you again very soon.